Okay, the next step of our document is, let's look at our checklist. All right, back matter we've done. We've set the styles in the main text area. The next step will be to run some GREP searches and run other searches as needed for an ellipse, hyphen with space, which we know are good. If there's any heights maybe that are in there, I'm going to show you how to look for all of these. But the first thing we're going to do is run two GREP searches that are going to show us any missing punctuation and any missing quotation marks. These are great because one of the most common mistakes uh, that happens in indie books is missing punctuation. It just goes unnoticed by um, editors and all the eyes that have been on your book. It just happens. And so one of the things that I like to do is just do a search for them to make sure everything has been set properly. So to do that, I am going to do a grep search, and I'm only going to search my first paras and my chapter text. I'm really going to just start with doing chapter text first. And so to do this, I'm going to show you on the screen, I'm going to show you the code that you would input here. But what I like to do is after I input it, I save the search so I don't have to input it every time. So mine is already saved in my query. I have one called missing punctuation. And so this is the grep code for missing punctuation. And I'm only going to look in my chapter text because it's going to find Prologue and Olivia and all our other names that don't have periods or some sort of punctuation at the end. It's going to find those. And we want this to be just a quick search. So we're going to avoid looking at those. So we're just going to stick to chapter text. And then I may decide to look in first paras as well. So we're going to find next. And there may not be any in the document. We're actually going to look through the whole entire document and not just my story thread. And here is one. We haven't set this to other titles yet, so it's going to find that. Here's another one. It's going to find acknowledgments. It's not reading that one. Again, these are not really issues. I just haven't formatted this in matter, and it's still calling itself chapter text. So we don't have any, but if we did have any, you'd be able to see it and you'd be able to figure out what punctuation you need to add. I'm going to do a quick search in first pair drop cap. We do not have any. And first para seam break. We do not have any. In first para seam break 2. Now, it seems kind of pointless because this document didn't have any, but in my experience, this is a very, very common issue people have. And so it's better to correct it now before it goes to print. So it's just a last little check. All right, the next grep search I do is just for missing quotations. It's another one of those common mistakes that happen. So this is the grep code. And so we're going to do a find next. And this is reading that there isn't a closed quotation only because there's paragraph marks here, but that really isn't one, so we can ignore that. And then here, okay, so this is a long conversation that's continuing, so we do not need to have a closed quotation mark because it's continued to the next paragraph, so that one is good. And again, this is the same thing. This is a continuation, so we do not need a closed paragraph, closed quotation there. Okay, again, this is a continuation, so we don't need one there. And sometimes you will have to read. Again, this is a continuation of the same conversation, so we don't need one there. Same thing, continued conversation. And then this is back to the first one. So this is just a final check just to make sure. And there were none in this book. But again, it's a very common thing. Now, in the Word document, I already noticed that the em dashes were set properly. The ellipses were, or the ellipse, any ellipses were set to Chicago Manual of Style, which is the proper way to do them in most cases. I prefer not to do them this way, but because she obviously had this book professionally edited and the editor follows CMOS, so I will keep them this way. I just really feel that that really is too much space, and I don't like that that much space in my ellipse. All right, so and that's really up to you as a typesetter whether you want to use a true ellipse or whether you want to use the 3 periods. Chicago Manual of Style says you shouldn't use an ellipse, that you should use the 3 periods separated by non-breaking spaces. So it really depends on what you want to do and what your client wants to do if you are a formatter. All right, one more thing that we will check for is I like to make sure, just in case somebody uses a height measurement, like the number 6 plus a quotation for feet, and then like 10, so 610. So if they have that in their document, I will correct it to make sure that the quotation comes through as a prime mark and not a curly quote. So what we're going to do is we're going to do another quick grep search. We are going to search for any digit because we're looking for numbers here. And we are going to look for any double quotation marks. We're just going to do find next. There are none. It's not very common, but I just always do a check for it just in case. And then again, any single quotation marks, there are none. So if there were some, I would go in and just correct it. Because when we type, it probably would be like this. And we do not want curly quotes. It's incorrect to do curly quotes. So what you would do is open up your glyph panel and view punctuation and choose the prime mark. So a double prime and a single prime. And that's how you would set off measurements such as that. We're going to delete those out because it doesn't belong in this document.